since we did cut those taxes in 2005, we've lost, I don't know, a couple 100,000 jobs in this state. Most people, if you do surveys, most people don't even realize they got a tax cut. So why were they beneficial if we continue to lose so many jobs and people don't even, they weren't even enough of an impact on paychecks for people to realize they occurred?
Well, that's a fair question. The folks that get in, when we get into these discussions, have a tendency to magnify them into all-consuming, all or nothing kinds of discussions, and that's not the case. No, I certainly wouldn't argue, and I don't think most policymakers that are experienced would argue that our tax policies are the driver of our state economy, either being positive or negative. That's a vast overstatement. The question is, how can we market Ohio? And I can tell you that the Department of Development heavily marketed the tax changes that we make, and they continue to do so. The problem is that there are things that can happen, that do happen, that overwhelm the policy changes that we make, and the conditions in the economy that took place globally really hurt Ohio, because we're still very much a manufacturing economy, and that's been an ongoing struggle for our state. So I would argue, and I think there's evidence that will show that as we come out of this recessionary period globally, that Ohio is well positioned to market ourselves, and we're trying to take additional steps to further position ourselves for putting Ohio at a relative advantage to where we would have been if we hadn't done these things, and the things that we're going to be doing going forward.
Are there copies of the report?
What are you going to tee up on Thursday?
Okay.
Well, we're constructing that. We think we're on time, so we should have a day that's going to be very focused on disclosure of what we get back from that's under drafting and final consideration in the Legislative Service Commission as we speak for the next couple of days.
So you're going to roll out a sub-bill on Thursday?
Yes, that's the plan. And then we'll, just to review the plan, I think what I'm anticipating is that we will be ready to put the substitute bill out for review late afternoon on Thursday. And we'll try to give people a chance to start reading that, and we'll start hearings then the next morning, public hearings, so that folks can come in and talk to us about their take on this version. And we'll continue those into Saturday, and we'll also plan on having further public hearings on Monday of the following week, next week, as we move the process forward.
When do you hope to send it to the floor?
The target would be Thursday, week from the day we unveil the substitute bill.
How many amendments did you get?
We had proposed somewhere in the range of 1,000 amendments from members and some from the administration and from outside groups. And there were some duplication in some of those amendments and variations on amendments and so on. So it wasn't like those were 1,000 different amendments entirely. It was a daunting package.
Have you figured out what you're going to leave in terms of the major policy things and what you're probably going to do separate? I saw there's a hearing set up to move the criminal sentencing bill separately. Is that going to be done in a separate, for instance, is that going to be separate legislation?
Well, we went through the entire budget construct and looked for things that fit various categories of further work needed. And there will be some of that work done in the budget process itself. Some of it will be parallel to the budget. But and we're keeping our options open with hearings on other bills and other committees as we go forward. Because some of this is still a discussion in progress with our caucus on the best strategies.
Are there plans to roll parts of Senate Bill 5 or all of Senate Bill 5 into the budget bill?
Well, that's in the category that I'm talking about. But it will,
parallel category or in the budget category?
All the above. I'm keeping you confused on purpose because we're going to talk about that on Thursday.
Which wiggle room do you have with this budget? You've been around for a number of budgets. Compared to the past, given the financial constraints that you have, how much wiggle room do you have? And if you affect one thing, such as the prison privatization, that changes the revenue numbers, how much wiggle room do you have?
Far less than the average normal dynamic that we have to work in. Yeah, it's a very, very difficult budget. Having said that, I'm somewhat surprised that most of the credit here goes to the administration, but their proposal worked us out of the mess we're in more quickly than I had anticipated. Probably a 3, maybe even a 4-year workout, and I think they've proposed a shorter track of getting the thing under control more quickly. Now there's pain associated with that, so.
I was going to say, your members are feeling the heat already from a number of school districts. I recently saw a quote from one of your Caucus members talking about it devastating their districts. How much pressure is there coming from the Caucus right now to alleviate, as you put it, some of these sharp edges of this budget? And where do you find the money to do that?
Well, that's a work in progress, and we are working with all our members to understand what they're hearing back in their local districts at the same time that we've been hearing a lot through many hours of public testimony in our full committee and also in our subcommittees. So that's all part of the factoring process.
Just building on Jim's question here, as far as you can go on it, this idea of capping cuts for school districts at 20%, is that an amendment or is that an idea that you would support?
Well, we've looked at a variety of ways of taking the edge off for our local government partners, and clearly schools are a big part of that. And so I think the focus that we have is across all of the school districts in our state. That's our primary focus. We're not trying to single out a particular demographic of school districts to address their concerns. We're looking at the whole picture.
Will there be any adjustments to the school funding formula?
Arguably, we haven't had a formula for a couple of years and aren't going to have for another couple. And so there'll probably be some tweaks to the methodology going forward recommended in our budget, yes.
Are you going to be able to put additional money into the total school pot, or are we just talking about rearranging the
decks on the Titanic?
I wasn't going to put it that way.
Here's one of them. We'll talk about that on Thursday more about how we're going to, what we have in mind there.
Sounds like it's done, is it, the substitute bill?
It's not done until our caucus signs off on it, and they have not done so. So, and there are interactive parts. It's in drafting, but it's not in stone.
How has it been nonpartisan?
I'm sorry?
Have you been bipartisan in the amendments accepted?
Well, the amendments I referred to included Democrat amendments.
Are they being accepted? Are there some being accepted?
I think we'll find that there were many ideas and amendments from both sides of the aisle that were incorporated in the bill that we're going to bring forward.
When you roll it out to your caucus, when you guys have a caucus on, you decide on Thursday morning or?
About the same time you guys start getting. No, we're going to talk to them as the week progresses, and we'll continue that talk right up to the time that we go into on Thursday, and then we'll visit with you right after that.
Do you recall, did any amendments deal with taxes in terms of proposing rolling back some of the 21%, eliminating some expenditures?
Those didn't get as much consideration, so I'd have to go back and look.
Are there any, have you looked at taxing things that are currently not taxed, for example, like banks? They don't pay property taxes in school districts, and that costs the school districts millions of dollars. Have you looked at changing the law so that some of these companies, some of these services that currently don't pay any tax at all to their local school districts will start paying that back as one of the workouts?
I might not be understanding your question, because it shocks me that anyone would have the perception that banks don't pay property tax. So I don't even know what you're talking about.
They don't pay property tax, apparently. put on the envelope budget for people.
That doesn't make it true.
I have no idea. I never heard that ever asserted, so I'm clueless on that.
Just to take a broader look at it, are you looking at changing anything in connection with tax loopholes, anything along those lines that might generate more revenue for the state?
I thought that's what this press conference was about. The answer is no.
What about the retirement issue? The governor keeps touting 2% as a big boon for local governments, and then you still have the retirement systems that say it's not going to work. I know you guys have been looking at that. Is that going to stay in a modified form? Or?
Well, that's a topic among the spectrum of very concerned, issues that we're very concerned about, and it'll be something that we talk about specifically on Thursday.
Is the administration, have they been working closely with potential changes and potential amendments?
Every budget process has recommended changes that come from the administration in the House process, and we gave those consideration along with the other amendments that were proposed. So some of them were sort of corrective kinds of things. Others were a little bit bigger, and some of them got done, and some of them said no to.
Considering the number we're seeing for this budget, are there any chance we'll increase the revenue estimates before you pass it out of the House?
I think the consensus is that prudence suggests that we wait to conference committee so we have a clear picture of what's been going on for a longer period of this fiscal year before we make changes to the revenue projections that we got at the outset of our process. All right. Thank you very much for attending. We appreciate